Welcome to Recalculating Small Business. Like its award-winning book, Recalculating is dedicated to small business in America. Your hosts are Don Mazzella and Dan Perkins. Don Mazzella is the editor-in-chief of the Small Business Digest. Dan Perkins is a registered investment advisor with 43 years' experience in managing money.
Dan Perkins here, your co-host, along with Don Mazzella of Recalculating for Small Business. Our radio program is dedicated to you, helping the small business owners increase their profits. We draw our name from Recalculating, voted the best small business book of 2017 by the Independent Press. In this book, it features ways to grow your small business. Now, here's Don Mazzella.
Dan Perkins, my co-host, is on assignment today, but we're fortunate to have Elise Keith with us. She's just written a book, Where the Action Is. She also has a company that talks about how to improve your meetings. Elise, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Don.
Okay, Elise, we're going to start by asking a little bit about your background and a little bit about your book.
Okay, so I am one of the founders of a company called Lucid Meetings. We are a solution company, so we offer both software that helps people run better meetings, but also training and workshops and publications. And as you mentioned, we've just published a book. It's called Where the Action Is. It's available on Amazon. And came to that after a long career helping large international organizations collaborate over distance, where we discovered that all of the exciting stuff went down in the meetings. So felt like a good place to put some focus.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a big fan of meetings based on my experience within the corporate world. That's why maybe I'm out running my own company. But at least we're going to start. What are the three critical things to making a successful meeting?
So the three critical things for a successful meeting are probably things that you've heard before and rarely seen implemented. You need to know what the purpose is, so answer the question why. Why are the people in the room? And that's usually stated as some kind of verb, right, to confirm our progress or kick off this project. Then you need clarity about what you're trying to do, so the desired outcomes, and those are usually stated as a noun, a list of next steps, or a decision. And finally, you need a way to get between the two. You need a process with the right people that helps you go from why we're here and what we're trying to accomplish and actually make that happen. It sounds simple in practice, and actually it is fairly simple, but it rarely happens, which is probably why you've come away with this impression that corporate meetings are not the best place to spend your time.
Well, for me, it very seldom was, but let's talk about it in terms of a small business, which is our audience. What are the things that you would tell a small business leader who's got a relatively short staff and long hours and needs to make meetings?
I would tell them actually the same things we tell the larger businesses. However, the small business is in such a better position to be able to actually be successful with their meetings than the large businesses, where, as you know, there's this terrible inertia of ineffectiveness going on often in our big corporations. But in the small business, the secret to meetings is to understand why you need to have them in the first place. So for your instance, Don, you hold interviews, and you have a way in which you hold interviews. That's one of your very critical to success kinds of meetings that you run. And, you work to get it down like a science. This is how we start. This is how we end. This is how I make sure I get that result. And it's a meeting. It's a conversation you're having with a person on a topic at a time with a specific desired outcome. Everything that happens in your small business can be the same thing. And instead of starting with like, hey, let's have a purpose and desired outcomes, There are actually 16 types of meetings that businesses typically run, each of which solves a different problem. So the first step is to look at those and go, okay, for my business, which of these things do I need to run? And then, given that I'm a small business owner with very limited time, where can I find a great example to use and build on that? In course of running effective meetings, I think well stolen is half done is completely dead on, right? Learn from the best, use their processes, run with it.
That's really great advice. Now, I'm sitting here, and I'll take one example. I went into a company where they had a 20-minute limit on meetings. What are some of the things you can do to avoid bad meetings?
Well, the first thing you can do is you can, like I said, stop using that word. I would ban the word meeting from your calendar. Because the minute somebody puts something on the calendar and they just say, hey, meeting with Bob, or meeting on the XYZ project, it's not clear enough to be successful. So if you stop using that word and you require people to get more specific, we're doing the planning, we're making a decision, we're having a kickoff, we're doing an interview, we're doing a one-on-one review, right? Anything more specific will be more successful than this generic, we're going to be meeting, because that doesn't mean anything. And in fact, most people consider the word meeting to be sort of a trade word for let's kind of get around and listen to people whinge at each other. So that would be the first thing.
That's really interesting. Well, my experience, what do you consider some of the traits that can make a good meeting leader?
I think the most effective meetings are ones where both people feel that it was a good use of their time, right, and one where they accomplished something. So a good meeting leader is going to be someone who has clarity about why they're in the room and what they're meant to accomplish, because otherwise you can't accomplish anything. And they're willing and interested in getting people engaged in a useful way. Now, happily, while many times the idea that you can get there is only available through like facilitation training, in fact, I've seen many organizations be successful by structuring how they lead conversations. So they have a way that they run their check-ins, for example, or a way that they run their sales demo. Or in your case, I'm sure you and your partner have a way you run the interviews so that either one of you could step in and lead. Once you have a system like that, a good leader is somebody who can follow the system.
Well, I've always had difficulty all my life following the system, but you're right when it comes to this show. But I've watched effective leaders at meetings and ineffective leaders. To me, the worst is the autocratic leader, the one that, in effect, decides what he wants out of the meeting or she wants out of the meeting, and doesn't allow other things to come out of it, good or bad. And I've often wondered whether those people are truly successful or just great ramrod people.
Isn't it too bad that you can be wildly successful and still be a terrible person? Because that is absolutely true, right? There isn't actually a direct correlation with positions of power and worthiness to be leading other human beings. Unfortunately, in our work, a lot of the time we get pulled in to help with a meeting culture problem, right? People are like, our meetings are dysfunctional. And always, without fail, while there are skills we can help people on and practices that help improve what's going on for them, a meeting problem is always a symptom of a larger problem. And autocratic leadership is one of those problems.
I think you're right on that. most organizations that had a lot of meetings weren't very effective in getting things done. But, to me, when I was first started out in the corporate world, meetings were a way of exchanging information. Now with the internet, the world has changed in many, many respects, and that's one of them. Before, often a meeting was necessary in order to bring everybody up to speed. Now it's not the case. But we still hold meetings to exchange information that sometimes is redundant, or it's just a repeat of what's already been accomplished via email. In this changing world, where do you sit?
Yeah, I think I still think there's a value for confirming and highlighting information in meetings, but I agree. Any time where you're reading at each other like you were in a room full of kindergartners is a terrible waste of time. The problem that we run into in the modern age is that there is so much information and it's coming from so many different directions that even if you have things like reporting structures and email and chat and all of the other tools, the meeting is really the only way you actually know whether somebody has been exposed to that information, because you can't really tell if anybody actually read that email you sent. And because people have that fear that their information isn't getting out there, they get everybody back together in a room and they say it over again, right? So the way to combat that is to provide information in advance, which requires people to be on top of things enough to provide information in advance. And then when you're in the room, assume that it's been read and act on it as opposed to going back over it. This is really one of those cases where you get what you tolerate.
We're talking with Elise Keith. She has a wonderful new book out. Elise, tell us about your book and how people can find it and talk to you.
The book is called Where the Action Is, The Meetings That Make or Break Your Organization, and you can find it on Amazon. It's divided into 5 parts where we go over, I talk about basically some of what we've been talking about, some of the negative beliefs surrounding meetings and how they get in our way of being effective. The 5 levels of performance that different organizations can achieve. So what does it look like when you do it well? One of our challenges with meetings is that we don't have a lot of positive models to follow. So we went out, we did some research and found some really compelling, exciting practices out there from across the world. And then I lay out the 16 different types of meetings and explain how each one of them can be used effectively and share some stories of teams that are really doing it well and teams that are struggling, so folks can put that into practice themselves.
Well, when you went out there and found some positives, could you share a couple with us?
Yeah, you bet. I've got 3 examples, but let's start with one. Zingerman's. So Zingerman's is a community of business. They have a deli and they have a training center and a whole bunch of things like that. And I went into their meetings. They have a weekly meeting in each of their main businesses where they review the financials and address any problems that are coming up in the week ahead. Now, in Zingerman's, it's basically a weekly team update, right, which is the most dreaded of all meetings. But in this case, I went and I watched the weekly meeting at the restaurant. And everybody was there. People who didn't even have a shift that day showed up. They took turns talking about their metrics, and they took turns to the degree where it wasn't just management. We had frontline servers. We had hostesses reporting on things like sales, reporting on things like customer satisfaction numbers. At the end, everyone in the room took time to raise concerns they had about where that business was going that week, and then point out places of appreciation or gratitude that they had for each other. So in that setting, they had a weekly team meeting that was a dissemination of information critical to making decisions that move that business forward, and a foundry for leadership development for junior people. These were, part-time high school-age dishwashers talking about how to read a balance sheet in front of their peers. It was an amazing positive opportunity for them to come together and for them to focus on the critical metrics of making their business go. And that was spread across all of their meetings. All of them had that kind of clarity and that kind of energy to them, and it was really quite wonderful to see. So that's one example.
But can I jump in here and give you a counter to that? And then the New York City Police Department has a weekly cop stat report or crime stat report, and where the borough it starts out precinct to borough and borough to commissioner's office, and it is. I sat in on one of them, and it's absolutely the most gut-wrenching experience I've ever run across, because there you're being questioned on your methodology, your statistics, anything that bad's happened, and very seldom is anything good come out of it, good said. It's really a very demanding thing. What do you say to something like that? Is that does that have value?
That sounds kind of punishing. And I know Amazon does something kind of similar. They have a weekly meeting where everyone is held accountable to their numbers. And if your numbers are not up to snuff, that accountability is not a gentle, supportive thing. The practice of looking at the numbers and investigating what's going on with them is not a bad practice. Taking the time to beat people up one at a time in front of everyone else is pretty poisonous. That's a pretty poisonous way to go about solving problems. So there are other practices. Let's look at the opposing forces group for the Army, for example. They also have some mission critical things they're trying to achieve with limited constraints in high stress situations, and they need to learn fast. So they also hold each other accountable quite a bit. They meet very, very frequently, and they do it in a way that is specifically focused on group problem solving. Right? This thing went bad. What went bad? What did we learn? What are we going to do next time? And they do it fast, and they do it with a clear intention that everybody's there to solve the problem, not to beat people up. And they learn at an incredible rate, which improves their collective decision making across the board. It's a really positive form of dealing with failure as opposed to a punishing form.
And again, for our audience, you're referring to who? Because it kind of slipped by us.
That's the opposing forces group at the Army training base.
Okay.
So when they do war games out in the
Yes.
So OPFOR always wins because they know how to learn.
I agree wholeheartedly. Now, we have a little time. Where would you like to go? What are some of the things that you like to talk about when you get in front of an audience about what I think is a fascinating subject?
I like to talk about getting specific, which we've done a little bit. And then the other thing that I think is just really totally fun to talk about are using meetings as a foundation for your business's communication architecture, which is a lot of big words, but basically it means that once you find those specific things you need to do, so in Zingerman's case, it needs to keep everybody on top of what the numbers are so that they can make good decisions about what to push on the menu that day, for example. In the Army's case, they need to know what's going on in the situation. They need to learn fast, so they have a way to do that. So you know what those things are. Then you can put them together into a set of standard operating procedures, and that drives radical business transformation. It's really cool to see when that happens. So you can see it happen in the small business world, like even as down to the solopreneur level, when you're dealing with, for example, sales. Trying to bring in a new client, how do you have your first conversation? How do you have the next conversation? How do you agree on your scope of work? How do you define that kickoff with that client? Once you get a process for that, you can dramatically increase the scale at which you operate. And that's a lot of fun. So that's where meeting specificity and embracing the idea that meetings are, in fact, where things can happen, unlocks this whole world of opportunity for designing your business and achieving great things.
Oh, okay. That sounds great. What are the 2 or 3 negatives that you've seen over the years, and the ways you can correct them? That use common negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first negative is the belief that meetings are a waste of time. It is borne out by our experience, but it creates a doom loop, which is this cycle where we think that they're a waste of time. So therefore, we don't put a lot of extra energy into it. We walk into the room kind of grumpy to begin with because we think it's going to be a waste of time. By golly, doesn't that lead to it being a waste of time? Belief confirmed, and we repeat that cycle over and over again. So I see that. I see a lot of abuse of power, just like you talked about before. And that can be countermanded with appropriate structure, but you have to take it on. You have to get past the doom loop belief before you can find a way to make it work. You have to believe that it can work before you start to make it work. And then I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of people afraid that they're going to offend somebody or leave something out or, look over process driven, and they're afraid to actually try the things that will make them successful. So get past it. Embrace it. It'll be awesome. That's the key.
Well, I belong to the library committee at my club, and the chairman is a distinguished theologian and author. And what I'm amazed about is sometimes the meetings dissolve into 3 or 4 people talking absolute nonsense, simply because they like to talk. And he just sits there and lets them talk it out. Well, I want to say, let's move on to the next item. Do you believe it's a good thing to let people talk out their feelings and aspirations? I know we talked earlier another time about the fact that sometimes nonprofits have people on it who have nothing else to do except talk about things. And but I'm always amazed at how this man simply sits there. Intellectually, he's way above our grade level, and lets them. Do you think that's a good way for some people to manage meetings?
No, of course not. That's a great way to do a dinner party. I mean, if the point is for everybody to sit around and hear how Jack feels, then let Jack talk. But that's probably not while you're in the room. The thing about accomplished people in every discipline is that they're accomplished in their discipline. It sounds like your chair doesn't have any structure or meeting expertise to bring to bear. So one technique I really love to use with groups that are struggling with that problem is a way you just organize how input's received so that nobody has an opportunity to keep going on. Like there's just no space for that because you are capturing the information, feedback in silent writing to begin with, for example, or you use a timer and you pose a question to the group and you say, okay, group, what do we think about the new library bond proposal? Think about it silently for a minute. Now turn to your partner and talk about it, just the 2 of you, for 5 minutes. And then turn to the next 2, talk about that for 5 minutes, and then each group of 4 can share one thing they like. You can do things that get everybody a chance to talk, but they don't have to talk to everybody else all the time. But it takes some skill.
No, I'm going to suggest that to him the next time. Because
yeah, it's called 1-2-all. Run with it.
But let me go on. I'm a veteran of the news business, where if you go to a meeting in the morning and you're divvying up the stories, there's always competition for the best stories. How do you handle when you go to a meeting where you're literally divvying up some choice morsels and some lemons? How do you deal with that?
Well, in a case like that, and I don't have any experience with that specific meeting, but in other situations that are similar, we look to try and help the team create an agreement about how that will happen. So let's look at a related example. We work with international standards organizations. So these are committees that meet online, and they have representatives from all over the planet. And one of the challenges is, when do you meet? Because at some point, it's either this guy's in his pajamas, or this guy just got up, or it's the middle of the day, right? So nothing is convenient for everyone.
Right.
And some committees just decide to punish the least powerful representatives. They're like, suck it up, South Africa, you're going to get up in the middle of the night, or whatever it is. And that's terrible. That's a terrible way to do it. Other committees form an agreement, and they rotate. On Friday, I get first pick. On Saturday, you get first pick. But they make that decision as a team. And in the newsroom situation, if you are all truly equally competent for each of those morsels, then it seems like a system like that you derive together would be appropriate.
That's a great example. We're talking with Elise Keith. She has a wonderful new book out. Elise, how do people? What's the name of the book, and how do people reach you?
The book is called Where the Action Is: The Meetings That Make or Break Your Organization. It's available on Amazon. My company and our website is lucidmeetings.com, and you can reach me at Elise at lucidmeetings.com, ELISE.
Elise, in the 2 or 3 minutes we have left, what are the beginning, the middle, and the end of a good meeting, in your view?
The beginning, the middle, and the end. Once you get into the room, that's so great. We call it the double-headed pencil. So there's a 3 phases to every effective meeting. And the first one is the focus and become present. So you have to clarify why you're there, connect with everybody who's human, and decide or define clearly out loud why you're there. And there's icebreakers. Everybody hates icebreakers, but actually icebreakers are really fabulous because they get everybody to speak quickly, and they help clear your mind of all the other garbage that you're bringing into the room with you, so that you can become present and be in that space. In the middle, you do the work. And that work is, we've decided we're going to accomplish this. We need to come out of the room with that. In the middle, you figure out how you're going to do that, and you work through it. You make your decisions, you check your actions, etc. And at the end, you take 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and you go over what you did in writing where everybody can see it. I think you mentioned before, whoever owns the minutes owns the meetings. Don't let that happen. The group owns the minutes. You are collectively responsible for what happened there. Make sure every decision is written out where everybody can see it and says, yes, indeed, that is in fact what we decided. The action items, yes, indeed, that is what I will do, and I am comfortable with that date. I can, in fact, get back to you by that day. And you go over those things every time at the close, say thank you, and you're done.
That is terrific. We've been talking with Elise Keith. Her book is Where the Action Is: Meetings That Make or Break Your Organization. A link to her website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this show and every past and future show. And you can also tell us guests that you might like to hear on this show. Elise, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
Marcus Lemonis, J.D. Powers, and John Scully, and 100 other presidents and experts contributed to Recalculating the book. Why did all these people agree to contribute to the book? I'm Don Mazzella, and I'm the editorial director of Small Business Digest. And for 20 years, we have been offering small business leaders information and data to increase profits. Recalculating the book was named the best small business book by the Independent Press Association. Whether you need help with marketing, staffing, finance, operations, technology, or many other subjects, they're all here in Recalculating the book. They're now available at Amazon at a reduced cost. We've also created the radio program Recalculating on Recalculating.biz. Dan Perkins, my co-host, is on assignment. We have with us Mark Willingham. He is founder and president of Agent.Inc., which is aimed at helping models avoid some of the pitfalls of that exploitive yet lucrative and desirable industry. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You know, Mark, last week I was at the Curve show in New York, which is for lingerie, sleepwear, etc. And there were all of these models running around in various stages of swimsuits, bras and panties, etc. And I remember years ago interviewing a by then famous actress who said she really got to become an actress by having to take jobs at the shows like the Curve. But Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, which I found so fascinating. We had to have you on the program.
Well, yeah, thank you again for having us on. And I can tell you one thing: we're super thrilled and passionate about what we're doing at Agent. We kind of looked at, as you kind of described, people have this. They've either seen runway shows and they hear the glamour of models. They read Vogue, and a lot of people aspire to the dream of being a model. And like most entertainment-related industries, there's a good side, and then there could be a little bit of a dark underbelly. And the modeling industry specifically, which has kind of been the way it's been for 70 years, without changing much, has a huge glamour to it, and it does support a lot of dreams. But, thanks to, I could say, to Harvey Weinstein and some of the other media coverage that's recently come out over the last year or so, people are getting a glimpse as to some of the things that can happen especially when there's vulnerability and power tied into it. And what we did is we looked at the modeling industry, and I ran a fashion brand, international fashion brand for 11 years. And so I was very familiar with the fashion industry. We hired Adriana Lima to walk a runway show in New York, and we would hire models for various events around the world. And the one thing that I knew was this is a broken and fractured business. And the reason for that is that the models have become secondary. They've become secondary to their own industry, the industry that exists because of them. So they're kind of like out there an outlier. They have a traditional agent who represents them and sets their rates and then gets them booked. And in the perfect world, they have a whole lot of work and a lot of jobs and protections. But in the real world, the models contractually get signed to these agencies. They have no control over their career. They don't set their rates. They don't get paid in any fast manner at all. Actually, many models get paid 60, 90, sometimes 180 days after the job, and there's not a lot of safety checks and balances for the models. And we said we're going to change all of that, and we have. We do background checks on every client, which is a complete flip side of how it normally works. So if a company wants to hire a model for a job, they have to go through our application process. And we do criminal, sex offender, ID verification, checks on that person, verification of need, whether we think that company really has a need to hire models. And then we empower the models to set their own rates. We give them tools, education on what it's like to be a model, how to protect themselves, how to make the right decisions, and help them with their career. So that's in a nutshell what we do. We do a lot more than that, but that's kind of covering what we do. And we said, look, we're going to reimagine this entire industry. Let's make it better. This is a great business. It's a great industry. We're going to improve it. 70 years of no change is not good for us, and we said we're going to flip it upside down.
You're so right. Many years ago, I made a living writing for True Detective and True Romance magazines. If you remember, well, you're probably too young to remember them.
No,
okay.
I remember.
And I knew the editor and went on some of the photo shoots, etc. And I remember then realizing, that they always had a picture of a beautiful girl in distress was the cover, and the more the gorier it was, the better the cover, etc. And over the years, I've been involved. But be that as it may, I see. As I said, I was at the Curve show, but I've also seen at other shoots young models, sometimes teenagers. We know several famous actresses have been models as teenagers. But all of that leaves them very vulnerable. And you started to outline, how does your agency really get down to the nitty-gritty of protecting these young women? Okay,
so great question. Okay, so in reality, we're not an agency. We're a platform. So we think of ourselves as kind of like the sun in the solar system, and that's the middle of the modeling industry. And all the planets are different parts of the ecosystem of the industry. Those are the models, their clients, their other agencies or agents, or all of these things. And we believe what we're doing is going to help all the players. So when it comes down to safety, I think there's three components that are super important. One is you need awareness that there's a problem. I think it goes without saying that everyone now knows that there's issues. Again, if you point out Harvey Weinstein and a whole slew, I can write a book on it, of all the players out there who have acted badly or illegally and done things to people that should not have happened. So the fact that we're having conversation, that we weren't having conversation 18 months ago about this in public forums, means that we're making progress, because that conversation and awareness leads to solutions. So now that we're having the conversations, and we started this, quite frankly, almost 3 years ago. It's 2.5 years ago. So this is way before. We identified this problem. We identified the needs and to enact change long before any of this happened. These just became wins that helped propel what we were doing. So now that we have the awareness, then we said, okay, we're going to put in some checks and balances. And that's where we do our background checks. And it's our first line of defense for the models and actually for everyone, because the clients actually end up getting better. Everyone is better off with what we do. The clients get more self-assured, confident models who feel good and better about what they're doing. The models, the clients, with our transparency that we've put into our platform, get to see everything as it is with the models, like, with how people have rated them, but the models also rate the clients. So other models can see how other models have rated that client and whether they should accept the job with them and whether they think it's a good deal. So then we have the awareness, then we have the tools that we put in place, that first line of defense of safety and background checks. And then the third component is education. And this is a real key component, I think, to what you just said. When you have these young models out there, and first of all, you have to be 18 to be on agent, but it's free for models, it's free for clients, but they do both go through a vetting process. And the educational tools are, what happens? Let's say, if we do a background check, or if someone did a background check on Harvey, they probably would not have come back with a rap sheet on him, but it doesn't mean he wasn't a predator. So with us, it's the same thing. What models need to know is if you are in a situation and something occurs, this is how you can and should respond. That you're empowered. You're the one in charge. You don't need to do this. Because you think about this, you're oftentimes, as a model, on a photo shoot, maybe sometimes there's only one other person there. Maybe it's just a photographer. And it could be for a really good shoot somewhere. But there's not always a big team. Sometimes there is, sometimes not. If that photographer says, okay, the lighting's really good, we now want to do a couple topless shots, and you have some model who doesn't know better or feels pressure because of who this person is and how important they are or how big the client is, that they feel they should go along with it because they don't have a choice. And we say you always have a choice, and models need to know that. I often simplify it just because I think it makes a lot of sense. Remember when we were all young and we would be in elementary school and they would do fire drills. And they'd say the fire alarm would go off and we'd all stand up and they'd say get in single file line and walk outside to the playground. And they would do this every month. And after a while, you're going like, okay, I get how to do this. But they did it for a reason, because if there was a fire, we all knew how to act. We believe the same thing happens with everyone. And so we are providing these educational tools and information to the models, so if something does occur, they know how they should and can react to that. We've also built into our platform different safety nets, if you will. We have a thing called Agent Assist. You can click it on the platform on our mobile app. It'll go directly to someone 24/7. We're building other safety mechanisms which will allow models to notify authorities without even having to talk on the phone, and they'll be able to find out where they are and come there to make sure they stay out of harm's way without drawing attention to themselves while they're doing it. So there's all these things that we're doing. We're just redoing how it was. And quite frankly, because of what we're doing, the environment gets safer just because all this stuff is in place. It's like people, if there's two banks next to each other and one has alarms and cameras, someone's much less likely to go to that bank than the one next door that has nothing. And that's what we're seeing.
We're talking with Mark Willingham. He's founder and president of Agent.Inc. And it's fascinating. Again, I didn't quite get the connection, but it's actually a website and a combination that aimed at not only protecting models, but also people who use models and making it easier for them to communicate. Mark, I have to ask you a question that just came across my desk. But what made you decide to do this? I know you alluded to it, but this is a major commitment from someone. What made you impelled you to do it?
Well, there's actually, it was a lot of stars aligned for this. One, I've always personally been passionate about looking at causes where disruption actually is a positive word and where we can act real positive change. And I like challenges. But the reality is I have two business partners. We're all three co-founders here. And one of my business partners, Dustin Diaz, is a technology guy. He's worked with all the big major tech companies, and he was also, he started a company with Garrett Camp, who was the founder of Uber. And he's also, back years ago, as a semi-professional photographer, got named Photographer of the Year on Flickr. And it was kind of a big thing back then, and he was awarded a book deal and so for photography. So he did a book on lighting and photography, and he's like, okay, I need some models for this book, but where do I get a model? He was a tech guy. He'd never hired a model. So he went online and looked for how do I hire models, and, he didn't think he needed to use an agency. It's just too small of a thing. So he ended up finding a place called Model Mayhem, which kind of describes exactly what it is, and then Instagram. And so he went in, he communicated with some models, and of the 20 models he tried to hire, like 50% of them didn't show up for the job. The ones who did, none of them could take a credit card. He had to pay them cash. No one had change. He was like, well, this is a mess. And that was even before peeling back the covers. But his experience said, wow, this, just from a practical efficiency standpoint, can be completely redone. And Ashley St. Clair, my other partner, she's a master at design and product design and designing tech interfaces. And with my background, we just said, look, we're going to come in here, and it's a big endeavor. We're doing something that no one's ever successfully done in a multi-billion-dollar industry. And worldwide, it's in the tens of billions. And we're saying we're gonna change it for everyone.
I think it's fabulous. Making money and doing good at the same time is always good. We're talking with Mark Willingham. He's one of the co-founders of Agent.Inc. Mark, how does a model go about signing up on your site, and how do you vet the model and then eventually the photographer or the user?
Okay, so there's two ways right now to use our platform. One is to go to our web interface or website, and the actual website is, the company is Agent Inc., Agent Incorporated, but our website is join, it's in JOIN, agent.com. So you go to joinagent.com, and it's free to create an account. So either a model or a client can go there and create an account and fill out the application. For models, it's super simple. You upload some photos, you fill out a list of questions, and then submit it. And we have a committee that reviews it, just like maybe like a traditional agency, but you don't need to go in person, who reviews it. And our criteria are pretty straightforward. We're about diversity, so we're not looking for, the old to school Barbie type look. We are absolute about, this is a new world and a new look. We have everything from curvy and plus size to tattoos and alternative, and we have some of the most beautiful models in the world on our platform. So with over 20,000 registered models already, that's what makes us the fastest growing right now in the world. So the model applies, and our criteria, we keep everything simple here, is do we believe that a company would hire this model? It's that easy. And if we think that model could be hired by a company, then we would accept them onto the platform. And if not, it's just, or we have too many models that have the same look or whatever. For the client, it's pretty much the same process. It's free for everyone to use the platform. So they come in, they fill out a few questions, and then we conduct our background check, and we have a verification group that also looks at, like, we look at it and say, hey, what are the reasons they need to hire a model? Is this a big brand, small brand? Where are they located? And if they pass our pretty tight vetting process, then they're accepted onto the platform, and they're able at that point to actually request a booking with one of the models. So we also, on top of the website at joinagent.com, we also have an iOS app. So you go to App Store, you could either go to our website and click on the button, it'll bring you to the App Store, or you can just go to the App Store directly and type in agent and type in models, and you're going to find our app. It's free to download and free to use.
We're talking with Mark Willingham of Agent.Inc. One question: do you take male models?
We do. We have male models. We have female models. We have transgender models. We have, again, we are that new mindset about diversity, and we believe in today's world there is a need for almost everything. I mean, if you go back just a few years ago, a traditional, maybe let's say bank, might only be looking at that, kind of like nuclear family that's just like that perfect, like, family that's, cookie cutter. And now they're like, hey, that's not our customer anymore. Our customer is everything. So they may have someone with a young guy with a full sleeves of tats on his arms, and that today they don't want to lose their market, is who they're going to want representing them in some of their advertising. And so those are the types of things. We have huge brands, big fashion brands, to cosmetic brands, to small boutiques that are hiring our models, everything from promo models for an event down in Hermosa Beach in California to an event in the Hamptons to a runway show in New York. We cover the gamut, and our models fit all of those needs.
In the few minutes we have left, Mark, our show is primarily aimed at small business. What advice do you give small business people who think that they need a model for something like a brochure, et cetera?
I'd say that it's never been easier than it is now with Agent. Some people are amazed that they had no idea that they can hire models for as little as $25 an hour. I mean, we have models that are up to $500 an hour, but they go down as low as $25 an hour, whether it be for a brochure or you're having an event and you want a model to be checking people in. You're going to a trade show and you want to have 3 people that are knowledgeable. We make it so much easier. If you're going to a trade show in Las Vegas or Los Angeles and you're going to bring your team there, you're going to lose downtime of your team by being there. You're paying for hotel rooms. You're paying for all that. We have local talent that can actually fill those needs and have skill sets that can meet whatever your needs might be for that specific event. So I just say ease of access. If no one's ever thought of hiring a model before, I encourage them to come into the platform. They don't even need to fill out an application. They just have to sign to create a login to see how it works. And then if they want to go from there, they can fill out the application so they could try to book someone. But I think people would be amazed. I know people in the fashion industry who've worked for some of the biggest fashion brands in Paris that were blown away when they got in and looked at our platform and saw what they could hire at the rates that some of our models are offering.
Mark, do you collect the fees between the model and the photographer, or is that handled by the agency?
Yeah, well, because we actually are in the middle, so the agency really doesn't come into play with us. So we have the models and then we have the clients. And we allow that platform to communicate directly with each other. The client, which could be a photographer or it could be a brand or it could be whoever it is that was hiring the model, they actually would pay the model at the end of the job. They hit a button. Everything's electronic. So it's electronic payments. The models I told you before often get paid up to 180 days in the traditional world. In our world, they get paid the same day as the job. So as soon as the job's done, the client, whoever that might be, taps complete, is able to modify the time based on maybe they did a great job and they want to pay them more. Maybe they worked an extra hour because they needed them. They can adjust the time, hit pay. The model gets paid immediately. And only at that time do we collect a processing fee. So there's no fee at any point up to then. And even at that point, we charge a significant discount off any agency. A traditional agency charges the client 20%. We charge 5%. So for a company booking a model, the fee is only 5% versus 20%. With a model, the model normally pays 20% as well, and with us, they only pay 10%. So we give a 75% discount plus a better service, more efficient, faster, and safer to the clients. And with the model, we give a 50% discount, a safest environment that we know of in the world, plus more opportunities to book jobs. So it's a win-win. And on top of it, with the clients, we also have 24/7 customer service and 100% guarantee, satisfaction guarantee with the model. So if they're not 100% satisfied with the model, we stand behind it. No one does this in the world.
Mark Willingham, your websites again for people?
It's joinagent.com, as in a movement, because we feel like we're part of a movement. So it's joinagent.com. You can come to the website, check it out, watch a video about what we're doing there, or you can go to the App Store and download our app. Just search for Agent and Models, and you'll find the free app.
We're talking with Mark Willingham. A link to his website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future Recalculating program. You can also tell us guests you'd like to hear. And we're happy to announce we're now on iTunes as well. You can download the app and enjoy the program there. Thank you, Mark Willingham, so much for being with us. It's been a real pleasure and really interesting new concept. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Take care.
You know, Dan, before we go any further, I want our audience to know about your new runaway hit book on Alzheimer's disease and how it affects teenagers. Please tell us about it.
Yeah, Don, thank you. The book is called Why Can't Grammy Remember Me? It's a book written primarily for children ages 9 to 12, but really needs to be read by the entire family. And what I try to do is I try to take the subject matter of dementia and the challenges to a different level in the form of a mystery story with my two little detectives, two little girls, Hudson and Charlotte. And it really creates a breakthrough opportunity for small children and parents and families to begin to understand the problem with dementia. See, Don, the real challenge is that the children are the forgotten people. Mom and Dad spend so much time working to try and take care of Mom and Dad, they don't take the time to explain to the children what's going on in Grandma or Grandpa's brain. So you can buy it at Amazon.com, or you can order it through your local bookstore, or any online bookstore besides Amazon has it available. Why Can't Grammy Remember Me? Illustrations are spectacular. A story by Dan Perkins.
Your runaway bestseller, new book.
Why Can't Grammy Remember Me? By Dan Perkins.
Hello, I'm Dan Perkins, the co-host of Recalculating, and I just found out that I'm a type 2 diabetic. I don't know about you, but I was scared. I went to the diabetes classes at the hospitals and was overwhelmed with all of the information. I'm not a doctor. I'm a diabetic looking for a better way to treat my diabetes. It's important to me to try and treat my diabetes with a minimal amount of drugs. I found the Diabetic Solution Kit. It's a proven system used by over 300,000 people that help them balance their blood sugar, lower their A1C, and treat diabetes at the root cause. When you follow the simple instructions, the solution kit could help you get off of drugs, and it may even alleviate your need for daily insulin shots with your doctor's approval. If you're looking for an alternative in treating your diabetes, then you need to consider the Diabetic Solution Kit. I know it helped me, and maybe it can help you. Go to recalculating.biz and look for the Solution Kit link. Click on it and learn more.
Thank you for joining us on Recalculating. We hope the information you received on today's episode was helpful to you in starting and growing your business. Please go to our website, recalculating.biz, to contact us, to listen to past shows, and see special offers. Until next time, remember, if you grow, we grow. Join us next week for more helpful ideas to make your business a great success. Recalculating, a program designed to help you be successful.